Oh, baby, we are live, but we're going to let it breathe just for a moment. Hang tight, hang tight. We're going to get at it quick, though. Let not your heart be troubled. And we're good. So, welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. The freshly manicured Zack Kelberman in the house. Zack, first of all, nice haircut, high and tight. That's the way it's got to be.
Always.
Second of all, gut reaction to what happened today with Jeudy, and just walk everybody through what happened for those who've been at work grinding. Maybe their phone buzzed with an alert, but they really don't know the full scope of the situation with Jeudy and his injury.
I think the broader situation is that John Elway indeed sold his soul for SB50. This team is beyond cursed, Chad. I mean, especially at wide receiver. You lost Tim Patrick to an Achilles. You lost Jalen Virgil to a meniscus. And now on an end around that happened during joint practice today with the Rams, Jerry Jeudy goes down. For those who didn't see it, he was carted off the field. He could put barely any weight on his leg. He was visibly frustrated. Everyone assumed, including myself, it was another season-ending injury. Fortunately, there is some positive news to report per NFL Network. He has a moderate hamstring injury that's expected to keep him out for several weeks, but it's not considered long-term. He'll probably end up missing week 1, maybe week 2, but he'll be back more than likely in the first quarter of the season. And though hamstrings tend to linger, but it could have been season ending. It could have been truly worst case scenario, but it's not. But they're going to be without their top receiver. And if I'm Cortland Sutton, the only uniform I'm wearing until September 10th, week 1, is bubble wrap.
Yeah, man, it's like when it rains, it pours. The three, I guess, four main injuries, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Tim Patrick, since training camp started, Tim Patrick, wide receiver. KJ, more of a condition than an injury, but nevertheless, KJ Hamler, wide receiver.
He had the pec, too.
That's true, off-season pec. Mike McGlinchey, he's back in the saddle pretty much, though.
Brandon Johnson was hurt, too, for a while. Another receiver.
True. Brandon Johnson, okay, so that's 3 receivers out of 4 kind of key injuries, and now Jeudy. So, yeah, it does feel like the Broncos are a little bit snake bitten, and I like your analogy that the only deduction here, not an analogy, but the only deduction can be John Elway did some fuzzy math to sell his soul for the Super Bowl 50. Did you see what Sean Payton said today, though, about the notion of being snake bitten?
He doesn't believe in it, but like, what else could it be if it's not a curse? They've changed out the entire strength and conditioning staff. These injuries have occurred not only in Dove Valley, they've occurred in other facilities and stadiums. If it's not a curse or a hex or the devil playing tricks on the Broncos, I don't know what it is, Chad, but apparently Sean doesn't believe in that.
The Papa Bear, as he is known in his neck of the woods, David McElrath jumping in. Thank you, bro. Really appreciate your support early. Sorry we're late today. It was my fault. Long story that none of you probably want to hear, but appreciate your guys' patience. David, appreciate your support. And he's saying, Jerry Jeudy, still 12-5 plus Buckham times 6. He's doubling down here because it's normally times 3 for David. MHH for life. And Denver Broncos for life. Plus, thank you, David. We got Jonathan Ward jumping in with a very generous super chat as well. Appreciate you, bro. He says, okay, in a blink of an eye, down goes another starter, and we haven't even played a game that matters. Hard not to feel down about this one. Not Jerry. I know it's a tough situation here. But, guys, let me read to you real quick. All right, let's talk about what Sean Payton's outlook on this is. And you could say that, yeah, of course he's going to say this. He's kind of selling his team, he's selling the media, and thus the fan base, the perception of the Broncos, a specific line or position. Quote, someone wrote the other day, and you guys asked me a question. I'm pleased with where we're at. We've had 2 significant injuries, obviously, an Achilles and an ACL. It's just me. I don't believe in being snake bitten. I think we've had a really good offseason program. Bo Lowry, the new executive, and these guys have done a great job of getting, then he cuts off. We've had a number of players now all coming back. I forgot about Simmons being injured, McGlinchey and others. They'll all be healthy and ready for Vegas. I think if you look around and truly try to analytically evaluate the other 31 teams, you would see I can't speak for a year ago where we were at this time, but I don't feel anything unusual. You want to stay healthy, yada, yada, yada. So how do you react to that, Zach?
A lot of it, I think, is coach speak. What else is he going to say? I mean, he's going to say we're cursed and we suck and the training sucks. He's going to stick up for his guy, Bo Lowry. He's going to stick up for his guy, Dan, whatever, Dalrymple, the new strength coach. And he's going to just maintain a positive posture. And like he said, when he was asked who's going to step up in Jeudy's absence, he pointed to the fact the Broncos have a lot of guys. And I know they're not Jerry Jeudy, but you still have Marvin Mims. You have Marquez Callaway, Montrell, Kendall Hinton, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Brandon Johnson, Michael Bandy, and the one dude that I can't remember, what's his name, with the solid hands.
Oh, the undrafted rookie?
Yeah, him
oh
too.
my gosh. Weird name, unique name. It'll come to me. Keep talking though.
That was it though. So they have, they have the sum of parts. Yeah, Taylor Grimes. There you go. So hopefully in Sean Payton's system, he's made no-name receivers into fairly household names. Maybe with Brandon Johnson or Taylor Grimes or somebody else, Marvin Mims, second-round rookie, he can do just that. And again, this is not a season-ending injury like with Tim Patrick or Jalen Virgil. Jerry Jeudy will be back, but until that time, they're going to have to work some magic.
KB with a very generous super chat. Thank you, bro. Wants to know, with the recent bad news, should Denver kick the tires on N'Keal Harry? Sorry. What do you think, Zach?
I don't know. He was cut from the Vikings today, but he's a former Patriots bust. I don't know if there's any blood to squeeze out of that rock with Harry. I always say it, I'd rather the younger players, the in-house guys who've been in the system, who've been at Broncos training camp practicing, get the first crack at replacing JJ. Whether, again, that's Johnson or Mims or Callaway, I feel more confident with them than picking up somebody's leftovers and N'Keal Harry.
I think, honestly, this means you kind of next man up it, and the next man up is Marvin Mims, and it's going to be kind of a trial by fire. Welcome to the NFL, first couple of weeks for the rookie out of Oklahoma, but that's often how it goes for players who that break out, not necessarily break out, but players who end up out kicking their coverage and doing better than the projection because somebody ahead of them got injured. Their opportunity grew. They got more snaps, more exposure, and they rise to the occasion. I think I could be a little bullish here on Mims because he has had a little bit of a up and down training camp, preseason, Zach, because of his own hamstring injury. But he is basically back in the swing of things. He's healthy. So if I'm a fly on that wall in Dove Valley in these meetings, I'm guessing that's something the coaches are talking about. Like, hey, in the event we don't have Jerry for week 1, week 2, etc., who are we going to lean on to do some of the stuff he does? Because, oh man, what he does with his route running and the way he's able to create separation, he can really clear things out. And so hopefully, Marvin Mims steps up and answers the bell.
I don't know what it is with hamstring injuries. You're right about Mims. He had dual hamstring issues. KJ Hamler famously had hamstring issues in college and during his infantile career with the Broncos. And now, another lower body injury for Jerry Jeudy, who missed, I think, 7 games in 2021 with an ankle and 2 games last year with an ankle. Injuries are a part of the sport, but at some point you have to examine why is our entire receiving room year after year, despite coaching changes and conditioning changes, why are they always ravaged? What is really going on?
Naj, let's see what Naj has to say on the subject. Thank you, bro. Very, very generous. Number 1 super chat of the night so far. And of course, it's going to be Naj leading the way. He says, hey, brothers, not sure about selling souls, but definitely feels like we got the evil eye on the team. Got to break through with some force of good. Anyway, realistically, where do we go from here at wide receiver? Yeah, that's the thing is I understand the feeling and we joke about it. And sometimes gallows humor is what it takes to kind of get through sticky, rough situations. But this I don't panic over this. I'm not going, oh, this casts aspersions on the entire operation. Like some people on Twitter today that I won't name because I'm not trying to shot call or anything. Are like, ha, ha, ha. for those people who were using Lauren Landau as a scapegoat to solve all, blame basically for all the Broncos injury woes over the last 4 years, basically, ha, 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 how do you feel now? And it's like, look, first of all, that's not helpful. Second of all, you cannot debate how bad the Broncos were in the injury department over the 4 years he was in charge. I mean, look at where it ranked in the league. Eric Trickle did a very nice analytical breakdown of that in December, 2 games maybe left in the season. And suffice to say, the Broncos were in the top 5. First of all, they were the worst team last year. And in that 4-year period under Landau, they were a top 5 most compromised team because of the injury bug. So you can laugh and say, ha, ha, ha. How do you feel now for people wanting to scapegoat Lauren Landau? But that was the bottom line. That was the truth. Change needed to come. But the flip side of that coin, Zach, is that it's still football. It's still an explosive, violent, dynamic war of attrition. And even in practice, these young players, they're twitched up, right? They're jacked up. Their natural frames have, in some cases, 40, 50, 60, 70, who knows how many pounds of muscle on top of their natural frame so they can armor up and be strong and play football. Then you put into that, Zach, the cutting and the exploding and the twisting and all the stuff that they do with pads on, right? Added weight to that frame additionally, and then throw in the contact. And it's just natural part of the game. All right. But because, Zach, it's so closely on the heels of this preceding 4 years of doom where the Broncos really were snake bitten, I understand why fans, the natural thing is, hey, here we go again. But I'm not there yet. I think pump the brakes, let the chips fall. It's going to be okay. What do we do at wide receiver here, Zach?
You're absolutely right. Both things could be true. Lauren Landau was a problem, and there's also an ongoing issue still with Broncos players, specifically wide receivers, going down. So you're right, not helpful at all, and I kind of ignore that commentary. To answer Naj's question, though, if there was a good time for this to happen, I would say it's now. And I'm not just saying that because it's August, but because before the 3rd preseason game takes place. Here's your chance. I mentioned all the other receivers you have behind Courtland Sutton, Marvin Mims, and Callaway. This is your chance in the preseason finale to see who steps up, who can fill that void, and kind of formulate your depth chart from there. So, Naj, I don't see the Broncos running out and signing a Sammy Watkins or a Julio Jones. I don't see them for now trading a late round pick for, I read Traquan Smith from the Saints could be a target for the Broncos. I think in the very, very, very short term, they're going to go to war against the Rams on Saturday with who they have and then see who separates from the pack and who they want to keep on the 53, at least initially.
Hector, appreciate the kind words, my dog. Thanks for being with us this evening. Cloud9 TK, this is a super chat superstar, been with us a long time, but it has been a minute. So welcome back. Great to see you. Says, I think it's time to trade Jerry Jeudy. He just can't stay healthy every year. He's hurt. Hashtag paper mache. Yeah. I mean, we can talk about the Broncos track record of recent history, Zach, for being snake bitten, but Jerry Jeudy has struggled to stay on the field. He's probably been one of the most, I don't know, one of the most cursed guys relative to that. Not as bad as, say, KJ Hamler, but year 1 was the closest thing he had to a complete season, and even then wasn't quite there. Missed basically half of year 2. Last year, missed a little bit of time, but it wasn't crazy amount of time. So unfortunate, yeah.
I just don't want to get too knee-jerk, but because before the injury, Jerry Jeudy was dominating training camp. I mean, he was looking like a Pro Bowl receiver, and he still could be when he comes back. He has that natural talent. Cloud9, I respect your opinion on this, but I heard the same thing the entire offseason. Well, the Broncos should trade Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, get rid of them both. Imagine where they would be right now, Chad, if the Broncos had traded Courtland Sutton. They'd be down to Marvin Mims and Callaway and Lil Jordan Humphrey. That would be your starting receivers. So I think a little patience and a little understanding goes a long way here. Judy's talent is undeniable. His ceiling is you can't even see it anymore. It's so high in the sky. And under Sean Payton, he was really poised and still is poised to fully break out. So I know it's frustrating. I know it's the woe is me. Here we go again, the last 7 years, but he will be back. And I feel like when he gets healthy again, you're going to see that talent really shine.
keep in mind too, guys, when an entire training, health, nutrition, that whole thing, that program is changed, you really can't start measuring the effectiveness thereof till year 2. All right. And especially when things are brand new, changing the way you train. As Scott brings up in our chat, our private chat, they're going to be early injuries. Next year is the better tell for the effectiveness of the new
Yeah.
staff. Plus, Cloud9, love you, appreciate you, big dog. But if he's always hurt and he's overpaid, he underperforms, he drops passes, how you gonna trade him?
Right.
Right? So think about that. But much love and respect. It's so great to see you tonight, big dog. Appreciate you contributing to the conversation. Claude in the house, throwing down some stars on Facebook. What's up, big dog? Great to see you, my brother. Appreciate your support as always. Albert Knopper saying Brandon Johnson should step up now. Zach, what do we know about where things stand with Brandon Johnson?
I mean, even before these injuries, when Virgil was healthy and Jeudy was healthy, Brandon was getting some run with the ones. And then he went down with his own, I think it was an ankle, something like that, that kept him on the shelf. But he really has perimeter potential in a Sean Payton offense. And you can tell that he has some sort of trust with the coaching staff, some sort of chemistry with Russell Wilson. I'm not going to say he should supplant Marvin Mims or Cortland Sutton, but as a developmental guy or a primary backup, I think he's your man that can step up in Jeudy's absence.
Indeed. And as Dylan says, deep breath, Broncos country. George, appreciate you, bro. Great to see you in the chat tonight. He says, what's your opinion on Trey Lance? Denver Broncos for life, MHH for life. Great pod, guys. Thanks. We're going to answer this question for you, George. All right. And then we're also going to get to a big rumor that exploded today relative to the Broncos trade market and a disgruntled All-Pro. First things first, Zach, how you feeling about one Trey Lance?
I'm in the minority, I feel, where I don't want the Broncos to waste their time, their energy, or their draft picks on a project quarterback. They've been there, done that. Maybe not with Sean Payton, but historically, since Peyton Manning, they've gambled and they've come up empty time and time and time again. I don't think Trey Lance will end up coming to Denver. I've heard the Vikings could make a play for him. And why would he when there's two quarterbacks already behind Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson's locked in as the $50 million starter. They paid Jarrett Stidham. Ben DiNucci's look good in preseason. Why would Lance want to come here? And why would the Broncos want Trey Lance?
Miss me on that. It happens, but it's pretty rare where a highly drafted, top 5 dude. Well, he was top 5, wasn't he? He was number 2, right?
I think 3.
3?
Yeah.
Anyway, where he burns out, fails to launch in his original NFL home, and then goes on to succeed. Look, if there's any team that really needed and wanted him to succeed and work out, it was the Niners. And they might not quite be pulling the plug, but it's shades, Zach, of 2018, where Paxton Lynch ends up as the third quarterback by preseason's end, and he ends up cut. Now Trey Lance, I don't want to compare him to the Paxton Lynch, but it's a similar vibe in terms of where things are at. Much more talented player, probably a much more when you talk about trying to still make things work and tap into that potential that he's yet to realize, I would definitely trust it a little bit more in Lance. But the Broncos, and he's not a Sean Payton type of quarterback per se.
Right.
Anyway, you got Russ, and things are about to get really good with Russ, even the Jerry Jeudy injury notwithstanding. It's going to be okay. And Michaela as well here, Zach, jumping in. The Duchess.
Thank you, Michaela.
Appreciate you. She's saying, bummer about JJ. Here's the bottom line, though. She's saying it's time for Mims to show why we drafted him. And here's what Sean Payton said today about Marvin Mims. Quote, he was better today. I think he's making progress. This field that they were practicing on today, a little slick, changed up his shoes today, and that helped him. You see it on tape. A lot of players are sliding around and whatnot. We got into a little bit longer cleat, and he had better footing. He's doing well. It's good to have him getting all these practice snaps and these punt returns. He'll play quite a bit on Saturday. And he was also, of course, asked today about Kendall Hinton, called him smart, called him savvy, a player that just has a good feel and a good football instinct. So the Broncos, it might end up being, Zach, when you talk about replacing Jerry Jeudy, it's more of a it takes a village approach, because even today, Sean Payton, it's too early to say how and who's going to replace him or how we're going to approach it.
A little foresight goes a long way. A lot of Broncos fans wanted George Payton to trade Courtland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy. A lot of Broncos fans were a little perplexed that they traded up to draft Marvin Mims in the second round. But thank God they didn't trade Sutton. Thank God they drafted Marvin Mims, because again, where would they be right now after all the dust is cleared without those two players? But you're right, Michaela. He's a second round pick. He's very highly touted. The expectation on him was to kind of learn in year one or function as a situational deep threat. That's over with now. You have to step up. It's your time to shine. And I think he's up for the challenge.
Antonio in the house. Let's see what's on your mind, my friend. Thank you. Appreciate the support, big dog. It's great to see you. Longtime superstar here in our community. He says, I believe Coach Payton will get the best out of whoever fills in for Jeudy. Hashtag Broncos country. Buckham times 9, baby. Love it. That's a good message for everybody, Antonio.
Whoa, Mike.
Mike,
thank you.
Is going off the chain. Top rope, super chat. Thank you, Mike. Really means a lot, brother, helping us keep the lights on here. He says, good evening, gentlemen. Come on, guys. Let's stay positive. To be truthful, Jerry has had trouble catching the ball. If our team is going to succeed, it's not one guy that will do it for us. Keep up the great shows. Go Broncos. No Lance. Yeah, I mean, he's a cog. He's a cog in the machine. And Sean Payton's going to have to really dig into Slant God 2.0 and hope that Russ can figure out how to build some chemistry with Courtland Sutton this time around. They tried last year. I mean, Russ really force-fed the ball to Courtland early in the season, and it didn't work out so well. But that was in a different scheme. That was with a different Russ. Everything was different about last year.
I understand Mike and a lot of Broncos fans are trying to rationalize Jeudy's injury by pointing to his drops, but even when he's not catching the ball, his route running and the attention he draws away from the other receivers, including Courtland Sutton, including Marvin Mims, is invaluable. It is indisputably a blow to the Broncos offense. It's not a death blow. It's not fatal. They can and will overcome it, but it is a little bit of a setback. And having Jerry Jeudy on the field is way more valuable than Jerry Jeudy not being on the field.
Guys, just be glad that it's not a season ender. He'll be back. I mean, I don't know exactly how you define a moderate hamstring injury, but I guess that means one that would, if this happened in the season, they're probably trying to rush him back by the third game, meaning he might miss 2 games. They want him back for the third. But where are we at? We're on August 24th. What's the exact date that the season starts?
The 10th.
So look, you've got 3/4 of a month for him to heal up and get treatment.
Okay. Chad's out. So Woofy Malat, $10 super. He says, thank you, Woofy. Get well, number 10, Jerry Jeudy. Hashtag Buckham, hashtag MHH for life, hashtag Denver Broncos for life. Yes, get well, Jerry. And I think he's already in good spirits as Chad pops back on here.
All right, guys, new mouse, dude. I got this new mouse and it has the buttons on the side, and my hand glanced it and it X'd me out. So sorry about that. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. The only thing I'll say is right before we went on to do the podcast, obviously, Jerry Jeudy tweeted a laughing emoji, and I'm interpreting that as a fairly positive sign. So he's still in good spirits. It's not a long-term issue. There's optimism. He could be back in the first quarter of the season, and they'll be smart with him. But I think some level-headed perspective goes a long way here with Jeudy. It'll be okay. Breathe, guys and gals.
Naj again, brother. Thank you. Number 2 tonight. He's saying, looks like a medium grade hamstring is a 3 to 8 week injury. Probably means Jerry is out the first 4 weeks. We just can't afford a bad start. Do we know what's up with KJ Hamler's health? And I think they need him back. Thoughts? I mean, it is true, Zach, that it might be a subject that the Broncos now feel perhaps a little bit more motivated to revisit, depending on whether or not Hamler has improved with that heart condition. Because if he hasn't, then that's that, So if he has, hey, bring him back in. Can't hurt.
I mean, you could bring him back, but at that point, it becomes when, not if, he gets injured again. And I'm a KJ Hamler fan, but the guy just can't stay healthy, and he's been given chance after chance after chance. I know the heart issue wasn't his fault, but he's had so many things go wrong for him that it's only a matter of time before he's on the shelf. You really can't replace Jerry Jeudy because KJ is purely a deep threat. Jerry Jeudy does it all. Underneath, the intermediate routes, the deep routes, his route running footwork. He's a true number one wide receiver. KJ Hamler is not that.
Naj, appreciate you, brother. And it's true. The Broncos can't afford to not capitalize on a fortuitous stretch of their 17-game schedule, which is that first quarter of the season. Dirt Boy 6789, appreciate you jumping in with a super chat. Very cool. Nice to see you. We also have Mark McDonald jumping in with some massive stars. Appreciate you, bro. He says, and this is, if I'm not mistaken, this, the months begin to run together, but the reigning jersey winner on Facebook. What's up, bro? He says, evening, fellas. How about our guy, Randy Gradishar, finally getting the Hall of Fame nod? Very nice segue. Yeah, it feels good. It's not a for sure thing yet, but if you talk to the guys who know about the ins and outs of the Hall of Fame and follow the backdoor dealings, so to speak, backroom dealings is about, as a finalist, he's got to get 80% of the vote to advance as an actual member of the 2024 class. It rarely happens that a finalist doesn't get that 80%. So, I feel good about it. I told you guys on our, our last podcast before the decision, which was Monday night, I just had a good feeling about it and turned out to be good. So really, really, really happy for Randy, the Broncos, of course, but specifically Randy Gradishar, man. He's been waiting a long, long time for this. So some football justice on its way anyway, Zach, to being meted out.
About damn time, too. I mean, the guy has waited probably a couple decades longer than he should have, and it's pretty sad to say, but I'm happy that he'll be inducted and he'll be alive to, witness his induction. It's not going to be after the fact. So that just goes to show you how long certain Broncos legends, Pat Bowlen comes to mind, have waited for their shot of immortality. Hopefully, though, Gradishar's induction will open the door for others like Mike Shanahan, Dan Reeves, Lewis Wright, and so many other Broncos notables.
Doug, happy birthday, brother. Happy 61st birthday. Blessings right back at you, my dog. I would sing you the song, but it's copyrighted, and it would actually flag our channel. It's happened before. They're quite zealous with protecting their copyright on that particular song. But happy birthday. I'm sure everyone in the chat wishing you as well. And thanks for throwing down some stars as well on your birthday, big dog. Real quick, Zach, let's grab Gary, and then let's talk about this trade rumor. GLP in the house, the swashbuckler himself.
Thank you, Gary.
Hi, Chad, Zach, Dylan, and Scott. Sad about Jerry Jeudy, but we can't clutch our pearls. No one is irreplaceable. Go Broncos and buck 'em. I would say that on this team, there's one player irreplaceable. It's Russell Wilson. Everyone else, you can find a way, make a way. So I feel okay about it. Like, it's not great, but I'm not going, oh man, Zach, emergency Mile High Huddle meeting. We have to all get together and kind of reforecast how we see this season playing out. Those conversations aren't happening.
I would argue that PS2 is pretty close to irreplaceable as well. But, fortunately, like Chad was talking about, we're not discussing an injury to Russell Wilson, knock wood. We're not discussing an injury to Patrick Surtain. It is Jerry Jeudy. He's one of the team's best players, but they're still fairly well-stocked in that department, and Jerry Jeudy will be back at some point this year. So Gary's right. Don't clutch your pearls. Don't hyperventilate. It will be okay.
All right. Let's talk about this. Whoops. Oh, we'll grab Scott. All right, one more. Scott, bro, good to see you tonight, my dog. Appreciate you. He's saying, unfortunately in football, injuries happen, but I believe we have other players to fill in, and great haircut, Zach, giving you some props.
Appreciate you, Scott.
So, yes, indeed, brother. All right, Zach, let's talk about this other aspect real quick. So, for those of you who follow the NFL at large, you heard earlier this week, the Indianapolis Colts granted reportedly, according to Adam Schefter. Jonathan Taylor, the running back, his request to seek a trade. A couple of days go by. Cecil Lammey reports today that the Broncos, he's hearing the Broncos and the Dolphins are the two teams that are showing the most interest in Taylor, which was interesting. We start writing it up, and I think it was Benjamin Albright had the report within, I don't know, maybe an hour of Cecil saying, I checked with sources. The Broncos are fans of Taylor's game, but they're currently not interested in trading for him. So that's the scuttlebutt. What do you make of it?
This is even stupider of an idea than going after Trey Lance. Why, if there's any position the Broncos don't need right now, if there's one team that doesn't make sense for Taylor, it's them. You have Pookie coming back miraculously. He's a freaking alien. He's worked his tail off to come back for week 1 and even preseason 100%. It'd be disrespectful, number one, to bring in a player to supplant him or trade him out in a deal for Taylor. Number two, you paid Samaje Perine to be the RB2 or RB1 in waiting. Why would you bump him down the depth chart? And number three, with the emergence of Jaleel McLaughlin, you have your top 3 set. You have 2 big bruising bangers, and you have your change of pace scat back. Why the hell would you want Jonathan Taylor, who's becoming a cancer now in Indianapolis, couldn't stay healthy last year? He's going to want an enormous contract at a time when no team is willing to pay running backs big money, and to give up a draft pick on top of that and or a player. It makes zero sense to me, Chad.
I don't see a lot of sense for it either, based on Pookie's recovery and the emergence, as you mentioned, of Jaleel McLaughlin. But he is only 24 years old. Yes, he had problems staying healthy last year, but his first year as a rookie in 2020, he starts 13 games, rushes for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns. Year 2, he literally takes the NFL by storm, 1,800-something yards, 18 touchdowns. Last year, even getting injured and only starting 11 games, he still almost breaks 900 rushing yards. But if you add up, Zach, so there's pros, there's cons, there's trade-offs, all right? You look at him, you go, all right, he's only 24. He does want to get paid. That's why there's an issue here, and the Colts are kind of not really excited about rolling out the Brinks truck on a player who's coming off an injured type season. If you look at his college career at Wisconsin, maybe not quite, Zach, as flagellated as, say, Monte Ball coming out, talking about Wisconsin guys, but he did have well over 1,300 touches in 3 seasons at Wisconsin. And then you take that and you throw in his 3 years as a pro, roughly 900 touches. And that 24 years old thing, it makes him seem maybe closer to like 27, 28. So he's wanting a max contract for a running back at 24, like some of the other guys that we've talked about on the show this offseason, that whose teams were not playing ball, Saquon Barkley, etc. But he's you got to wonder a little bit about his tread. And I'm not trying to throw shade on him, because I do think he's got he's a killer running back. One injured season, I'm not jumping to conclusions, but the Broncos don't need him right now as far as fit and situation, and I do worry about that.
Yeah, I'm not knocking Taylor the player. He's a tremendous running back, and wherever he goes, he's going to be successful. But I just, first of all, trading for a guy coming off an injury with all that's going on in Denver right now wouldn't be very smart. Number two, you have 3 guys that have been entrenched, that know the system, know the playbook, have been performing. You have a truly dynamic backfield with all 3. Why would you bring him in? Why do you need him? If you want to make a trade for a player, Chad, how about a tackle? How about a guard? How about a defensive end? Why a running back?
Or even, if we were worried about Jerry's prognosis, like, hey, any resources you might use to get Jonathan Taylor in Denver, might want to hold on to him in case you got to use him on a wide receiver. But I don't, it's hard to say. Cecil Lammey, friend, great guy. I love his football insights. He's reporting this. He's not normally a guy that's kind of in the news breaking game, so to speak. He is an insider, though. So what he's hearing You got to weigh it. You got to measure it. Albright, much more in the kind of breaking news. That's my bread and butter arena. That's what got him his job at KOA and all that stuff. So you kind of have to weigh which one is the veracity of which, right? Which one you're more likely to believe. After the Jerry Jeudy injury, I think the Broncos, even if they were, Zach, interested in Taylor, I think they kind of pause and reset and kind of go, all right, we got bigger fish to fry. Now we got to figure out how we're going to move forward offensively without our number one receiver.
The Broncos haven't had a day one pick for 2 years. They've been limited in day two picks even because of trades they made. Why would you want to go out and trade for a position that's going the way of the dodo bird? No one wants to pay a running back right now, including Taylor's own team. The Broncos have 3 really good ones, but yeah, let's go out, trade a high round draft pick and or a player, pay this guy a massive salary for what? Doesn't make sense.
Phil, down in Tucson, what's up, brother? Really appreciate you. So great to hear from you tonight. Saying good evening to everybody. I have a feeling we should keep 7 receivers this year, and it might make sense to test the waters on Donovan Peoples-Jones. Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life. Go Broncos. I heard that quite a bit on Twitter today too, Zach, going after Donovan Peoples-Jones. What do you think?
I mean, based on what I've seen out of him in Cleveland, he's a decent receiver, but is he better than Mims or Callaway or Brandon Johnson, all of whom, again, have been in the system, have been in the playbook, have been on the practice field in the preseason games for Sean Payton? Is DPJ worth a draft pick, or would you rather keep that draft pick and put that elsewhere and go to war with what you have already?
I mean, honestly, I think the Jeudy injury is good news for the 2 former Saints competing in Broncos training camp, both Callaway and Humphrey. I think Callaway had sort of failed to impress anybody too much up to this point, but Payton now he's going, all right, I'm down a guy, and I know I can make hay with Callaway. He may not have had the most impressive camp. He hasn't really flashed yet in the preseason, but I know what I've got. Like, this is a known quantity. You know, he had a very productive season under Payton in Payton's final year in New Orleans, and that's a known quantity. So I got to feel like this probably helps his outlook initially anyway, making the roster. And Humphrey, it's like, hey, get out there, wide receivers, this weekend, preseason finale against the Rams. It's really time to step up and show these coaches that maybe you can fit in to the first team offense, even as a rotational guy, because that's another thing Sean Payton talked about today, which is, you know, we all get kind of hung up on who our starters are, who's the X, who's the Z. Not the first time he's talked about this, by the way, since he came to Denver. But we do a lot of like rotational stuff. Sometimes he'll be the Z. Sometimes he'll be talking about Jerry. Sometimes he'll be the sub guy, da-da-da. Same goes for some of these other guys. Just because they're number 5 or 6 on the depth chart when a regular season week 1 starts, for example, doesn't mean they're not going to see the field in a Sean Payton offense, even with everybody healthy.
By the way, I had to pull it up in front of me. Even though he played all 17 games last season, Peoples-Jones missed 5 games in 2020, or 4 games, and then 3 games in 2021. So if there's any player the Broncos would go after, it's a guy who is an Iron Man, who doesn't miss time, who's reliable, not injury prone, because you might as well bring back KJ Hamler at that point. You can't keep bringing in injured players with injury jackets in history and then act surprised when they get injured. It's what happens, and the Broncos have done this at every spot, right tackle, receiver, you name it, throughout the years.
Indeed. We're going to grab real quick Justin, but I just wanted to give another shout out to Scott. Bro, big boy stars again. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you, my friend. We're kind of rushing to get to the next topic, but just want to make sure you feel the love, big dog. Appreciate you. Speaking of feeling the love, we got Justin jumping in on Facebook. What's up? He says, good evening, fellas. What do you think about trying to pick up, say, Jarvis Landry? Zach?
I don't know. Meh. He's a good blocker. I'll give him that. So he would help out the running game. But I wonder, I don't know his age off the top of my head, but I wonder how much he has left in the tank. He's been through some pretty tough seasons since coming out of Miami. with the Dolphins, and I just don't see his value. And again, if you bring aboard a player that has a previous injury history, more than likely they will get injured again. So instead of, I'm assuming he's in his 30s, Jarvis Landry by now. Instead of picking him up, why not go with a 20-something-year-old in Brandon Johnson or a 20-something-year-old in Marvin Mims? Give those guys the first crack and leave the wash players where they are, which is on the street.
When it comes to Jarvis Landry, as my pa would say, my grandpa, R.I.P., washed.
100%.
All right. Besides, Jarvis Landry, even when he was in his prime, couldn't come close to replacing that route running twitch, that speed. He was more of like a short area possession, like a smaller possession guy. Okay, we're at 40 minutes, guys. We're doing decent on time, but any burning topics, get it in the chat, and we will do our best to get to them before we dip on out of here. Keith says, why trade the running back you've been looking for? Why trade the running back you've been looking for and get a cornerback? That's what I said when the Portis Bailey trade happened. You never know. Meaning like, hey, you can't miss the forest for the trees, etc. But listen, in that particular case, you have a couple things that were quite different than currently, Keith. Number one, Shanahan was a 4D chess kind of guy. Not to say that Payton's not, but number two, Shanahan at that point was now, what, 9 years into his tenure as Broncos head coach. He was already a 2-time world champ, and he had proven that he could get 1,000 yards out of a fullback, dude. Reuben Drones became a 1,000-yard rusher for this cat. So he was like, and I think that actually predated Drones, but still, I mean, up to that point, you had guys from Terrell Davis, Olandis Gary, Portis coming in. Like, he felt pretty good about the running game is going to be okay. We'll find other horses here, but finding the best cornerback in the league or having a shot at the best cornerback in the league, that's a blessing I don't want to pass up on. And if you go back, Zach, and I know this predates your time on the Bronco beat, but the Broncos were in no great shape at cornerback when that was made. It was a roster weakness, and Bailey definitely strengthened it. And, they struggled for a long time, giving him a decent compliment. Dre Bly worked out a little bit. Later in his career, he had some decent help, especially his last 2 years with Chris Harris Jr. in the slot. But still, I just don't think that's quite an apples to apples. But I get what he's trying to say here, Zach, that, hey, if you can get if you can get greatness, because you don't know what the limits of that might be.
I think you're exactly right when you talked about it being a different time. That was 2004, and Mike Shanahan fleeced Washington in that deal. I'm talking about no lube. You got a Hall of Fame cornerback and I believe a second-round pick in return for Clinton Portis. And back then, by the way, the NFL was a one running back system. That's why that trade happened and the Broncos got the better of it. But nowadays, I just can't see the Broncos making that same deal. Player for player trades are rare enough as it is. And I'm very, very high on the collection of Broncos running backs that are in the backfield.
Scott's just pointing out that we have Mile High Huddle video running on Pro Football Reference right now. And that is thanks to the long arm of Sports Illustrated syndication, I guess. But that's pretty cool to see. Keith, appreciate you, big dog. Glad to have you in the chat contributing to the conversation, my friend. Okay, let me see here. There was another one after him. Let's grab this from the Mile High Dutchie real quick. Current receivers have some chemistry with Russ. New ones coming that will take time, which we don't have, in my opinion. So if you really had to consolidate, all right, under the now perfect knowledge that Jerry Jeudy is not going to be available for probably the next month, then you really get serious about Cortland Sutton. You get serious about Marvin Mims. Who's that next guy? Who's that third guy?
It's got to be either Brandon Johnson or Marquez Callaway. And these are veteran receiver, or in Callaway's case, a veteran receiver. In Johnson's case, a young player with tangible upside. But I agree with Albert here. I've been saying this all podcast tonight. I'd rather go with what the Broncos have in-house, bet on them, see if you can't mine some gold from that rubble than bring in a wash player like a Sammy Watkins, Julio Jones, who we're just talking about. The receiver
of the Broncos.
And we were just talking about the Jarvis Landry. Why bring them in and hope that hope it's not a guarantee they'll form chemistry with Russ, hope they're not washed, hope they have any sort of upside or athleticism left in their bodies. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Sean Payton has a proven track record of developing wide receivers, again, turning no names, unknowns into damn good pass catchers. I'd rather bet on him and bet on the Johnsons and the Callaways than the Landrys and the Watkins.
I mean, even Marcus Colston, I mean, late round pick. Exactly. No one was expecting much out of that dude, and he became the most prolific receiver in Saints history. And Akey, yeah, you're right. Mike was that did precede Clinton Portis. So you had Terrell Davis, Olandis Gary, Mike Anderson, Clinton Portis. So you had 4 individual 1,000+ yard rushers. I mean, probably the only year off the top of my head, maybe 2 of those years from the time Shanahan arrived, they did not have a 1,000-yard rusher. So he felt pretty confident in being able to deal Portis for an all-pro corner. Todd saying, I remember the Portis Champ trade being viewed as a good trade for both teams because of the results and success of both players. I don't know. I don't remember Portis having that much success. Not to say that he wasn't productive, but I mean, I don't have his stats right in front of me, so I'm going off memory here, but I don't remember him ever coming close to the level of production he had in those 2 years in Denver. I mean, he was a 1,500-yard, 15-touchdown guy those 2 years.
Clinton Portis was a good to very good running back, whereas Champ Bailey is a Hall of Fame corner, one of the best to ever suit up at that position. And the way you're breaking it down, the running back success and Mike Anderson, Reuben Drones, I have one thing to say. Get Mike Shanahan in the Hall of Fame already.
Amen, brother. Amen. Real quick segue to String Guy. I'm sorry to hear about this. The singer of his friend and former singer of his band or his project passed away yesterday from a heart attack. So String Guy sent me some pictures of his guitars, also sent me a song. And I guess the singer of the song I heard, Scott heard it too, passed on. I'm sorry to hear that, bro. Thoughts and prayers. 58 is too young, my friend. So thoughts and prayers. Really, really hate hearing that, big dog. Okay. Let's grab this real quick from Nick, and then I think maybe Zach will kind of wind it down. Nick Hale, Chad and Zach, sorry I'm late to the show. Are we cursed with our receivers? I was so high on Patrick, now Jeudy for at least a month. What is happening? Hashtag BTG, MHH, baby. Yeah, it's a deep breath moment, guys. It's not panic. It's trust your coach now. I mean, you're in that situation where it's like Zach was just talking about. Trust Sean Payton's discerning eye. Trust his ability to develop and maximize wide receivers. And don't panic until you really have a reason to. Until it's coming out in the wash in a way that says, okay, where's that panic button? Smash it. Is it good? No, we don't love it. We hate it. We don't like to hear it. We don't want to see it. But it's not, to me, Zach, it's not throwing a wet blanket on 2023 at all. Even if it was a season ender, I would be saying this. And it's not. They're going to get him back at some point in the first quarter of the season. It's going to be okay.
But Nick, I do believe there's a non-zero chance the Broncos are cursed. There's a non-zero chance that Elway cut some sort of deal to get that Super Bowl win against the Carolina Panthers. We have to hope, though, this is the end of it. This is the last injury the Broncos will have, and they can have a healthy, productive year.
All right. Let's settle this because maybe my memory of Clinton Portis is just whack. All right. No. So 02, 03 is 2 years in Denver, 1,500 yards plus 15 touchdowns, 14 touchdowns, respectively. Year 1 in Washington, 1,300 yards, 5 touchdowns, plus 40 receptions. Year 2, Zach, pardon me, 1,500 yards. So, sorry, frog in my throat. He did have 2 comparable seasons. Like, you could argue 3 comparable seasons in Washington. So 1,300, that's close enough to say comparable, Zach, to a 1,500-yard season. Another 1,500-yard season. And then 2008, basically just shy of a 1,500-yard season. And then sprinkle in one more 1,200-yard season. So, yeah, I'm wrong on that, guys. I'm wrong on that. He earned Pro Bowl. He earned second-team All-Pro, pardon me, in 2008, and Pro Bowl in 2008. So, I don't know. Compared to, I guess, and you're probably right on that, Keith, in the moment where you're talking about how it's perceived in while we're in it, that it was a fair trade, probably true. But when you look back on it through the lens of history, unfortunately, though, Zach, the problem is, even though Mike Shanahan got a Hall of Famer out of it, he didn't make the best decisions with the draft picks and all that stuff. So unfortunate.
I player for player, though, Portis was a really good running back, but it still boils down to a running back versus a shutdown cornerback. And there's 4 integral positions in the NFL and football: franchise quarterback, franchise left tackle, franchise pass rusher, and franchise cornerback, like PS2 is now. Running back's not on that list. I will make that trade all day, every day, whether it's 2004 or 2023. The Broncos won that.
Man, he should have tried to come back one more year, though, so Portis, so that he could have crossed 10K on the ground, man. He came just short. All right, guys. What else is there today? We've covered all the main news topics, I think. So we got a few messages for you. And then tomorrow, Friday, Saturday's the game. So lots going to be happening the next few days.
It was another tremendous episode of the MHH podcast. If you're not doing so, follow us on Twitter at the MHH pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter, as you see, or as you're hearing, at Mile High Huddle. Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some of our merch, including Bucka merchandise, we're always promoting. It's good stuff, I promise you that. Check out mhhmerch.com and get yo swag on. If you haven't, drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Follow us on IG at mile_high_huddle, and make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch each and every single month. But if anything, guys and gals, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Amen, baby. Shout out to the great supporters tonight on Facebook. Scott going off, Mark going off, Claude going off, Phil, Doug, Lawrence, Justin. Appreciate you guys. Did we get a Lawrence question? I'm not sure that we did. He might have just thrown up stars. I don't know if he had a question or comment. Our great super chat superstars: David McElrath, Jonathan Ward, KB82, Naj Altaf, legend, Cloud9TK, the Duchess, Michaela Parker, Antonio, Mike Edel, Woofy, Naj again, love you, bro. Dirty Boy 6789, Gary Palmer. Much love and respect, you guys. Really appreciate you. And yeah, Saturday we'll have the game. There'll be a gut reaction after. You'll for sure hear from yours truly, possibly Zach as well that night. But if not, we'll both be back in the saddle, so to speak, Sunday night. So can't wait. Who's going to be tailgating? He wants to know. For which, like, generally speaking, Saturday, I don't know. Who's going to be? I don't know. Not me.
I mean,
I won't be there for that. But we'll be there October 22nd. Going to be
That's
dope.
right.
Hope to see you guys there. But anyway, much love and respect, guys. Have a great weekend.
Really quickly, NorCal, I'm late to the pod. Did they say how long Jeudy is out? Cliff Notes version, he has a moderate hamstring injury. He's out several weeks, probably including week 1, but it's not a long-term issue. He could be back in the first quarter of the season. Hope that answers that. As Chad was saying, though, have a great start to your weekend. Take care, and as always, go Broncos.